Take a look at these long lines. In Paris, people start queuing from dawn. In LA, American cops had to step in and monitor the crowds because of fears of potential chaos as a result of numerous people gathering. In Seoul, the capital of South Korea, similar queues were cancelled due to a massive fight breaking out. The scene is almost identical whether in these cities or others around the world. Lots of young people standing in lines for hours in front of small shops or vending machines. And the one thing all these queues across the globe have in common that everyone is there for one reason, to buy a toy called Labubu, a palm-sized stuffed doll with a very strange appearance. It has a bunny-like ears and 9 sharp teeth that makes it look like it's grinning with an evil smile. But the toy doesn't talk, move, or do anything at all. You will be hearing Labubu a lot in this video, which helped the Chinese company makes it reach market value of around 43 billion at the time of filming. That means its value surpassed the combined worth of American toy giants companies like Mattel with Barbie and Hasbro with Monopoly. So why did Labubu, despite its odd look and not being electronic, interactive, or useful in any way, spark global desire to have it? What would make millions of young men and women spend hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars just to complete collection of dolls that don't look very much the same? What is the secret of blind boxes that might explain parts of what's going on? Why has the Chinese government started to worry about the spread of this obsession? Let's rewind 15 years back to 2010 and head to a place often referred to as Chinese Silicon Valley called Zhongguancun, located in the northwest of Beijing. There was a 23-year-old Chinese man named Wang Ning who had graduated from advertising department at Guangzhou University in 2009. He opened a small 30-square-meter shop to sell stationery, toys, phone accessories, and modest selection of cosmetics. Wang Ning noticed something a little odd, that his customers would usually shop quickly and efficiently. They would come in, grab what they need, pay, and leave. That applied to every product except for one. He saw something different. The only item that made customers pause and spend time contemplating was the designing toys. These were toys with specific artistic designs, often part of collectible series. Wang noticed there was an emotional connection between customers and these particular toys, not any of the others. Eventually, Wang decided to change the name of his store to Pop-mart, shortcut of Popular Market, and officially registered it as company in August 2010 with a capital of $60,000. But by 2013, Wang was running low on cash and customers' traffic was extremely weak. On top of that, he faced a mountain of challenges from inventory management, staff hiring, to customer services. At that time, the company was manufacturing a wide range of products and selling them in retail stores. But the turning point came in 2014, when Wang made 2 decisions that changed the course of the company by exploiting the emotional attachment he has previously observed in his customers. So first, in order to maintain profitability, he decided to narrow down the product lines and focused exclusively on manufacturing and selling toys, which had become the most popular products that same year. The second bold decision was that he started selling toys in blind boxes similar to Japan's Goshban vending machines. These 2 moves significantly boosted Pop-mart's sales, but what Wang did in 2015 and 2016 took the company to a completely different level. The young Chinese entrepreneur continued his wave of innovation within the company and begins to reaching out to artists to design exclusive toys for Pop-mart. One of the most prominent of these artists was a young man from Hong Kong named Kenny Wong, the one who created Molly. After these artists joined Pop-mart, the company's sales skyrocketed, reaching $22 million in 2017, and then soaring even higher up to $73 million the next year. Pop-mart maintained its rapid growth and expansion to the point when in 2019, during the famous Singles Day shopping festival in China, it topped the sales charts in the action figures and toys category on AliExpress platform. It hit record-breaking sales of 22 million in just that single day. Also, it hit record-breaking sales of another 22 million in just that single day on the well-known Chinese platform Tmall, surpassing the sales of global toy giants like Disney and the Danish Lego. From that moment on, the Chinese startup Pop-mart began making global headlines as a fierce Chinese competitor starting to challenge the century-old titans of toy industry. As a result, Pop-mart revenue tripled, reaching around $257 million. And then the company secured licensing agreements for toy lines from international giants like Walt Disney and Universal Studios. And that was before the company went public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in December 2020. The time of the company's IPO, its market value had reached $7 billion. Also, before a few months of the IPO, something really happened and no one noticed at that time or could have predicted how it would later impact Pop-mart. Casey Long, an illustrator from Hong Kong who used to draw characters for picture books. He designed a character in 2015 inspired by Scandinavian folklore, a mischievous little elf named Labubu. So Wang decided to turn this quirky character into a toy. The company signed an exclusive contract with Casey to produce Labubu, and it was launched for the first time in a spectacular midnight event in November 2019 at Pop-mart's flagship store in Shanghai. Exactly 6 minutes after the curtain was lifted, Labubu boxes were sold out, and the revenue that night exceeded 20 million yuan. And actually, that was the beginning of today's global obsession, which intensively exploded in 2024 and has continued through mid-2025. Labubu dragged the wave of obsession among Gen Z and millennial shoppers in Asia, the United States, and Europe. People have been standing in queues for hours just to get the latest Labubu releases, causing some incidents involving fights, stampedes, and overcrowding. What intensified the fire around this shaped doll was the appearance of global celebrities wearing or showing off Labubu. Now, let's take a look at how this global obsession has reflected on the Chinese company income. Pop-mart total revenue reached in 2024 $1.8 billion, making a staggering annual growth rate of 107%. Labubu alone brought $425 million of that revenue, and that's about a quarter of the company's total revenue last year with 23.3%. These numbers in 2025 are likely to double due to Pop-mart's incredible sales growth around the world. Let me give you just one example. According to estimates by stock research firm Science, the United States Labubu sales surged by 5,000% in June 2025 compared to the same month last year. For the wealth of Wang Ning, in August 2025, it has reached around $22 billion, making him the youngest person to enter the list of the top 10 richest individuals in China. I have a question. Why are millions of people around the world collectively spending hundreds of millions of dollars just to buy a doll that has no practical use? And how this connected to our behavior as consumers? Well, Pop-mart usually sells its toys in blind boxes, or what are also known as surprise boxes. In China, each is typically priced at 69 yuan, about $10, and what inside is a figure from a collection made by the company. There is even price speculation on these figures. There are larger Labubu dolls sold at higher prices. For example, the rarest and most in-demand editions can go for insane prices, up to the point where a life-size Labubu doll, the rarest in the world, was sold at an auction in Beijing last month for $150,000. So what exactly are these blind boxes that played major role in Labubu's rise and in doubling Pop-mart's sales? A blind box or surprise box is a sealed package containing one or more unknown items, usually part of a collectible series, not limited to toys by the way, but can include other goods as well. The cool idea is that consumers don't know what's inside the box until they open it, which adds randomness and surprise to the experience. This method of marketing and selling targets you psychologically, generating a mix of emotions that often lead to irrational behavior. But blind boxes are not the only reason behind the Labubu obsession. There are numbers of factors at play, all of which are well explained by behavior economics. First, when you buy a blind box, you are immediately placed in a state of uncertainty as a result of unknowing what's inside. This increases your anticipation and curiosity, also amplifies the emotional effect of surprise. Second, collectible toy series like Pop-mart's often contain rare items that makes completing the set difficult, pushing you to keep buying in hope of acquiring the rare pieces. That pursuit creates a false and temporary sense of achievement and also is driven by two key behavioral biases, the endowment effect and loss aversion. For example, once a consumer begins building their collection, they feel an urge to complete what's incomplete. That compels them to spend more time, energy, and money to finish the set and avoid the regret of falling short. Third, there is a concept of social and emotional value. For example, blind boxes and collectibles often have entire communities and online groups. This creates sense of belonging and fuels competitive drive to stay ahead and gain social visibility. By the way, sometimes companies themselves either directly or indirectly create and manage some of these online communities and fan pages. On top of that, companies exploit what's called the herd mentality. When we see others buying, collecting, or bragging about blind box toys like Labubu, especially influencers and content creators like YouTubers and TikTokers, that exerts psychological pressure on the rest of us to join and buy too, and that reinforces irrational collective behavior. Fourth, purchasing blind boxes repeatedly and desiring to have rare items could dangerously cause a potential for addiction. Have you ever heard of gambling fallacy? The key idea is the immediate reward you get when you open a surprise box often overrides any logical assessments of value or cost. There is also a marketing track that Pop-mart uses: scarcity and limited editions. They manufacture what's called scarcity by frequently releasing new limited versions of dolls in very small quantities. This creates a spike in demand and drives up resale prices for beyond the product's real value, pushing consumers to buy quickly and irrationally. Another concept for their boost sales is called villain effect. What is the villain effect? It's when the perceived exclusivity and prestige of product increase its appeal regardless of the actual value. The higher the price is, the more desirable it becomes. On the other hand, some analysts believe that the lipstick effect is the reason behind the rapid growth of Pop-mart. The lipstick effect refers to the tendency of consumers who typically purchase luxury goods during times of economic prosperity to spend their money on unessential but cheaper items during periods of recession. Also, there is a culturally specific factor linked to Chinese consumers, as noted by some analysts and economists. Jason Yu, a managing director of Greater China at Cantor World Panel, told the Financial Times that toys in China are closely tied to the emotional economy. Younger Chinese consumers seek comfort and companionship through products like Labubu, largely because they for decades are the result of one-child policy and many experience of loneliness. However, numerous studies have linked excessive blind box consumption to risks, such as anxiety, depression, or even suicidal thoughts in emotional vulnerable consumers, due to the addictive behavior triggered by blind boxes and their associated mental health risks. China's official newspaper published a report on June 20 quoting legal experts who called for strict regulation on this trend, especially since it has led to addictive behavior among minors. That caused Pop-mart's stock fell by 3.6% on the Hong Kong exchange. Also, beyond China's crackdown, the People's Daily Report pointed to something deeper, a shift that a few may have noticed. Labubu Rise is not just about a global popular toy, but it marks a broader transformation in China's role on the world stage. China is no longer just like global manufacturing hub. It's beginning to export parts of its culture to the world. At the end, I want to say that Labubu Frenzy is a practical example of how scarcity, social dynamics, and deep-rooted behavioral biases fuel irrational consumerism, and how companies expertly exploit that to blind multi-billion-dollar business models.